Good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to be with all of you. Reverend Tony is stuck on 84. Those of you who didn't have to go on 84 this morning westbound missed that, but I'm going to fill in for the time being. So welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Danbury. My name is the Reverend Sierra Marie Gerfeo, and my pronouns are she and her. Please silence your phones if you have not done so already. This morning, we continue our month of exploring the theme of story, as well as our trans inclusion in the congregation series, with reflection on stories having more than 2 points of view. You may arrive this morning tired and weary, or upbeat and buoyant. You may arrive this morning unsure and unsteady. However you are feeling this morning, there is a place for you here, and together we will make this morning a celebration of community, support, friendship, kindness, and inspiration. You're invited to laugh and cry and share and be silent as you need to be. As we gather this morning, we respectfully acknowledge that our physical building is located on the traditional land of the Paugussett people. And before we get started this morning, I invite you to wave hello to those online. Hello, online folks, as well as to greet your neighbors either here next to you or across the room if you want to give a wave. Okay, so we invite you to join, those of you who are newer to the congregation or have not yet joined in formal membership are invited to the Pathways to Membership program at 11:30 following the service this morning. That will be in the library of the Cottage House. And if you're confused about where that is, just ask some friends to help you. Ask Lisa, she'll help you. Justine McCabe is organizing a monthly study group on the subject of the conflict in Gaza. Anyone interested in participating can sign up after service today. For more information, please contact Justine, who, give a wave. Here you are. Great. And the Palestine Solidarity Committee of UUCD will be meeting at 7 p.m. in the Fellowship Hall lower level to discuss the 2024 UUA Action of Immediate Witness for Palestinian Solidarity and whether our congregation should adopt the pledge to support the apartheid-free network mentioned in this action of witness. All are invited to join. There will be 2 opportunities to discuss this service and session 3 of the Trans Inclusion course on Zoom this Wednesday at 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. This was listed incorrectly as 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. last week. That's 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. And the Zoom link is in this week email newsletter and is correct. How many of you have started that Trans Inclusion online program? Just a few of you? Okay, it's not too late. It's not too late. It takes time for some of us to get started on these things. So please do take advantage of that opportunity.
Some of it would work well to play as a podcast. I mean, it's not literally a podcast.
Okay, Margaret's saying you can play it as if it's a podcast. Just listen. Just listen. It doesn't take your active energy. All right, and see your order of service. You're in our weekly newsletter and the events calendar on our website at uudanbury.org for a complete list of events. We make this time and this place holy simply by being together with each other. And we begin by lighting the flaming chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist tradition. Please join me in reciting the words to our chalice affirmation, and I'm going to invite Independence back up for lighting the chalice. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and justice is its light. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek and speak the truth in love, to help one another and celebrate life. Let's sing our hymn of celebration. The words will be on the screen. I don't know what the song is. What's the song? I'll gather the spirit. Please join and sing. say the children's affirmation. Words are on the screen. We are Unitarian Universalists. We are people with open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. We care for the earth and each other. Once upon a time, a long, long time ago, in a faraway land, a terrible fight broke out between the mammals and the birds. Mammals are all the animals that are furry and have teeth and carry their babies in their bellies until they're born. Birds are all the animals who can fly and have beaks or bills and lay eggs in nests. You see, the mammals didn't trust the birds, and the birds didn't trust the mammals. They were just so different from one another that they didn't understand each other. The mammals didn't know what it was like to see the world from way up above, and the birds didn't know what it was like to be covered in fur instead of fluffy feathers. So the birds and the mammals started to fight. But there was one animal who didn't understand the fighting. It was Bat. Bat couldn't pick a side in the fight because Bat felt like she was a little of both. After all, bats are furry and they have teeth, but they also have wings and can fly. Bat was friends with both birds and mammals. She would go flying with her bird friends and snuggle with her furry mammal friends. When the fight broke out, Bat was really sad. She went to both the mammals and the birds and begged them to stop the violence. "Don't you understand?" she said to the other animals. "You're not that different from each other. We all feel love and hunger and pain." "Look at me," she said. "I can fly, yet I'm also furry. I'm proof that there's no real divide between mammal and bird." But the other animals wouldn't listen. They had been told all their lives that birds and mammals were at odds with each other and had nothing in common. They had been taught to fear one another. "Pick a side and stay there," Tiger ordered Bat at the mammals' camp. "Stop pretending to be something you're not. What are you really?" Eagle screeched the next day at the birds' camp. "I'm both and neither," Bat said. But that was inconceivable to the other animals. Even her bird and mammal friends pushed her aside and kept on fighting each other. At first, Bat was too sad to do anything anymore. But then she realized that there were other animals like her, animals that were different from the others. She went and found Platypus. Platypus has a bill and lays eggs like a bird, but has no wings and is furry like a mammal. Bat also found Flying Squirrel, who is furry yet flies through the air. Bat, Platypus, and Flying Squirrel went and found Ostrich and Penguin and Kiwi, who are birds that can't fly, so they aren't part of the fighting. Now there were more animals who could help the mammals and the birds understand that not all birds are the same, and not all mammals are the same, and that they should stop fighting and get to know each other better. It was hard, but the other animals finally listened and stopped fighting. They started realizing how amazing it was that there were so many differences among them. That birds can be as small as a tiny hummingbird or as massive as albatross, and mammals can have tusks like elephant or the softest fur like bunny. And there were also ways that some birds and mammals were more similar to each other than to their own kind. Owl and hedgehog discovered that they both like staying awake at night, and loon and otter realized that they both love water. Eventually, everyone forgot that it had been Bat who was the bravest one of all and had stopped the fighting. and that was just fine with Bat. What mattered to her was that all the animals were at peace and that she had made a whole bunch of new friends like her who were different in really cool ways. So ends the story by Alex Capitan. I'm going to invite forward Maisie. Can you come forward for the lighting of our lantern? And Zella, would you be willing to get our basket for our collection of foods? No? Okay, that's okay. Would you like to do it now? Grab the basket for the collection of foods. We'll sing This Little Light of Mine as many verses as we need to until the children leave the room.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Building up a world, building up a world. I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world. I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine.
Hi, I'm Reverend Tony Lorenz, and my pronouns are he, him. And it's great to see you all here this morning. You may have heard I had a little difficulty this morning. If anybody's going home up 84, know that part of it's completely shut down right now. I have no idea why. Yeah. You can't hear me? How's this? Oh, okay. Yeah, part of 84 was completely shut down. I had no idea why. Very strange. There was no accident. There was an accident. I didn't see anything. Okay. Oh my gosh. Oh, okay. Geez. Woo. Yeah, it was pretty. It was. You could tell something was serious. So, whoo. So I'm going to invite not only all of you, but myself to take a breath and kind of allow yourself to completely arrive and be present. I invite us all to let silence speak to us for a moment. Leslie Takahashi writes, "They teach us to read in black and white. Truth is this, the rest false. You are whole or broken. Who you love is acceptable or not. Life tells its truth through many hues. We are taught to think in either or, to believe the teachings of Jesus or Buddha, to believe in human potential or the power behind our will. I am broken or I am powerful. Life embraces multiple truths, speaks of both and of and. We are taught to see in absolutes, good versus evil, male versus female, old versus young, gay versus straight. Let us see the fractions, the spectrum, the margins. Let us open our hearts to the complexity of our worlds. Let us make our lives sanctuaries to nurture our many identities. The day is coming when all will know that the rainbow world is more gorgeous than the monochrome, that a river of identities ebb and flow over the static, stubborn rocks in its course, that the margins are what holds the center. being a community.
Here's our note ready and sing. How could anyone ever tell you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you were less than all? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. One more time through. How could anyone ever tell you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you were less than all? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
Every week we gather, and behind the scenes of this congregation and any congregation, so much work is done by so many people just to make things happen and keep us here as a community. And all that work is financed by our community and the generosity of everyone who gathers here together in community. So, and this time on Sunday, when we send these collection plates around, it's both a request that you continue your generosity and a thank you for everything that you do, both financially and with your time and effort that enables us to be the presence we are in this community to ourselves and to the world around us. So I thank you very much once again this morning for giving what you can. And if you would like to, you can mail a check to us at UUCD at 24 Claphard Ridge Road in Danbury, and you have the other alternative giving methods as well. Thank you so much. This morning, I have a reading for you that's some excerpts from one of the documents in our Trans Inclusion Congregation course that's online. So this is from one of those readings that was there in this session. And it's from The Misuses of Biological Sex by Katrina Karkazis, who writes, policymakers who formulate sex categorizations and definitions overwhelmingly rely on biological features to ground membership. Biological factors hold appeal and power since reference to biology and science lends any suggested trait or combination of traits the appearance of neutrality and objectivity. But biological definitions of sex are at odds with the understanding that sex involves multiple biological and sociological factors. They are also at odds with social scientific work that complicates the idea that sex is biological, whereas gender is cultural. Sex, as much as gender, is culturally contingent and produced. As J.R. Latham notes, sex is not static, discrete, or even strictly biological a characteristic that exists prior to the relations and practices that produce it. Historian of science Sarah Richardson, for example, has shown how scientists sexed the X and Y chromosomes by glossing over inconsistencies and ambiguities between the two in their research to elevate findings that align with gendered ideas about biological sex differences. Decisions about which traits or sets of traits are used and in what combination and for what purpose are inextricably tied to why sex categorization exists and for whom and what purpose it exists and who it serves. Far from neutral or objective, sex classification and definition rely on cultural norms about appropriate relationships between sex, gender, sexuality, and work, in tandem with the power to support social norms and goals, as well as the socio-political hierarchies that determine opportunities and rights and privileges for various groups. Not surprisingly, there is a long history of using and misusing discrete biological criteria to determine sex, and thereby include or exclude certain people from certain categories. As I discovered once again, just getting here this morning, life is complicated. Example from my own experience. True story, but I'm going to summarize, so I'm not naming anybody specifically. A Unitarian Universalist congregation opens its church building to community partners that share its mission and uphold UU values. Some of these groups and organizations use space once a week. Some use their space once a month. Eventually, a major partnership with an LGBTQ organization arises, and the queer nonprofit begins using 3 large rooms in the church building for office and meeting space. They hold multiple meetings a week, their board meets once a month, and they hold monthly events and maintain regular office hours 3 days a week. Like other groups using space in the church, the congregation does not ask them to rent because all of their work is in direct support of the congregation's mission and the Unitarian Universalist Association values. But the first quarter of the fiscal year after the queer nonprofit begins using space in the building, heating costs are up 60% and electric costs nearly as much. When the treasurer of the congregation brings this up at a board meeting, the board quickly agrees to ask the queer nonprofit to start paying rent to take care of the utilities. Later, the property chairperson hears this and they tell the board member, you know, it's not just them. This building is used more all the time lately. We have coffee house concerts now on a regular basis. We have a lot of church events in the building over the last 3 months. Sunday mornings are lasting longer. We're getting more visitors. There's been more social things, potlucks, a Halloween party, a Thanksgiving dinner. The Christmas fair this year was a lot bigger and people were in here a lot more often working to prepare it and set it up and break it down. Having our queer friends in the building has certainly helped drive our costs up, but the increase in our bills isn't due just to their using the building. It's due to our use too. The next month at the board meeting, the board starts discussing how to find out what it actually does cost to keep the building open and heated and the lights on for so many hours, for a week, for a month, so that they know how much of that cost is related to church activity and how much to partners sharing the building. So they can ask people in a fair and just way to contribute to keeping the place open. Everything is complicated once you do a little thinking. You look just a little beneath the surface with even the bare minimum of critical thinking, and you can uncover complexities you can't even believe someone missed at first glance. And I would bet that most of us find this incredibly annoying most of the time. Life being complex can be a real pain in the butt. You can find yourself sitting in traffic wondering why there's no accident, there's no construction, and you're going to be late for work, and everyone in the congregation is going to wonder where you are, and you start muttering things that are very unministerial, and you're glad no one's paying attention to you up on stage yet. And then you find out it's an accident, and you feel horrible because you're a minister, and you're wondering what happened and to who, and life is just really complex. All the time, whether we're aware of it or not. Just ask bats. Humans like patterns and analogies and symbols, and we very easily store things in categories. And even though it may not be the best thing to do a lot of the time, we tend to label and categorize. It's part of who we are. It helps us keep track of the world around us and manage things in our day-to-day living. But it can also get us in trouble, in big trouble, especially when we disagree on the labels and categories and complexities. Our tendency to categorize and label causes us to tend toward binary thinking. Ones or zeros, yes or no, true or false, either or. Most of the time, however, we might be better off in terms of thinking of 0 or 1 or 2 or a few at a time, or all of the above. Sometimes we might be better off with maybe than yes or no. Mostly true or partly false. Both and instead of either or. Because this can take us to places that aren't helpful for us. For example, Republicans are fascist, totalitarian bigots that only care about rich people's money. Democrats are fiscally irresponsible communist radicals with a gay agenda and no morals who don't care about America. Drugs are evil, and everyone who uses or sells them is a criminal and should be thrown in jail with the key thrown away. All drugs should be legalized and regulated by a government the way tobacco and alcohol are. Hate speech is just a way to promote a liberal agenda. The First Amendment protects all speech at all times in all situations in every context. I can say and do what I want. Hate speech laws are required to protect the most vulnerable among us from persecution, discrimination, violence, and death. All religion is meaningless, infantile fairy tales used to manipulate the ignorant and simple-minded. Religion is necessary to instill a sense of morality in creatures who would otherwise be lawless, murderous savages. Our tendency towards binary thinking makes the false dilemma problem a real issue. The false dilemma is the philosophical argument that presents two options, but in an unbalanced manner to manipulate the audience, the people who hear or read, listen to the argument, to choose the desired manipulated toward option. And the way the options are presented makes one choice seem ridiculous, illogical, and unimaginable, and the other sane, ethical, and obvious. You are either pro-life or you are a child killer. You are either a vegan or someone who hates, abuses, and murders animals. You are either for cutting taxes or you are for fiscal irresponsibility. You are either pro-Israel or an anti-Semite. You are either pro-Palestinian or a supporter of apartheid and genocide. You either support dismantling the military-industrial complex or you are a violent warmonger. You either support the troops or you're a traitor to America. You either support reparations for slavery or you are a racist. You can either have the Second Amendment or you can have a society where only bad guys have guns. false binaries. Equally problematic, however, are false equivalencies. There are good people on both sides. Most of the time, this is actually so. But when one side openly advocates dehumanizing others, scapegoating, bigotry, and violence, and the other invites inclusion and participation and peacemaking, in order to have good people on both sides, you've got to have a very interesting definition of good. False equivalencies and false dilemmas lead to us quite often mistaking opinions for ethics. It's just my opinion is a fair thing to reference when you're talking about preferring tea to coffee, or preferring strawberry ice cream to vanilla or chocolate ice cream. You know, an opinion is a lot more intense when it disregards what's right and wrong, and what's fair and not, and what's just and unjust. An opinion is whether or not to call a drinking fountain a bubbler or a drinking fountain. It's a bubbler, by the way. Morality is saying black people can't use that drinking fountain or bubbler. It's a matter of opinion whether or not to call the place with the toilet the restroom, the bathroom, the head, or the john. It's a matter of morality when you start saying only people with certain sex organs when they were born can use this bathroom, toilet, john, or whatever. The falseness of the binaries and the falseness of the equivalencies we can dream up to forge our moral false dilemmas are tricky. And we need to pay attention to the whole landscape of this when we get into this. Assigning restrooms by biological gender is often framed as a false dilemma. Either limit restrooms to biological sex organs assigned at birth, or there will be demented male perverts pretending to be women assaulting and raping cisgendered heterosexual women in bathrooms. Sexual assault is not a joke. Rape is not a joke. Being safe is not a joke. Assuming all the risk is piled on the people who have a non-binary or transgendered identity, however, is immoral. In 2016, ABC News, Time Magazine, the Policing Institute, and other outlets reported that 200 national, state, and local organizations across the country that work with sexual assault and domestic violence survivors objected and published objections to the justifications given by lawmakers in many states to forbid transgender people from using the bathroom of their choice. They asked for support and full and equal access for the transgender community. Data from peer-reviewed studies, such as the one done in 2018 by the Williams Institute at UCLA Law School, shows that trans people do not pose threats in public restrooms, and trans-inclusive restroom policies are not exploited by sexual predators. Trans people, however, are often the victims of assaults in restrooms on a regular basis. Fundamentalism and zealotry thrive on the fact that life is complicated. People seeking understanding and security in a chaotic and uncertain world can easily fall into oversimplistic worldviews that provide easy to understand answers for everything. And frequently, these answers involve dangerous false binaries and false equivalencies. Fundamentalism and zealotry lead to purity thinking and purity culture, where there is no room for deviation from accepted norms, dogmas, or customs. You toe the line. And towing the line starts to have a very fine line between purity culture and totalitarianism. There's an incredibly negligible space between a purity culture where conservative Christians ask young people to make abstinence from sex pledges and pledging loyalty to the dictator because they're the dictator. Penalties for violating purity culture norms include shunning, exclusion, or expulsion from the community. Penalties for being disloyal to the dictator include prison, arrest, torture, and death. It matters what we believe. It matters what our opinions are, and it matters more what our ethics are. It matters what we believe in and how we should behave. Even as we seek to be as inclusive as we possibly can, we need to watch our own tendencies to purity culture and fundamentalisms and binaries and false equivalencies. Let us not promote false binaries or false equivalencies, but rather let us try our best to welcome complexity along with the challenges and adventures and possibilities it brings with it. This morning's reading and the rest of the resources in our session 3 from the Trans Inclusion course point out that there's a wide spread of data and expert opinion and ways to look at the realities of human sex and sexuality and orientation and identity way beyond a simple male-female binary. There's a diagram in your order of service this morning that hopefully gives you a little bit more perspective on the range of things involved here. And that's an illustration by Alex Capitan, who wrote the Bat Story and who will be speaking here from the Transforming Hearts Collective next month. On the surface, sometimes it seems easy to laugh with a conservative lawmaker questioning congressional testimony that mocks someone who says it's not clear-cut what a man or a woman is. And then you take a step back. And then you look just a little bit under the surface. Then you think critically just a smidge. Like our reading pointed out, lots of things to do with human sex and sexuality and gender are not a binary. It's not an either or situation all the time. In some way, it's not even what we would say is that continuum, right? Or a spectrum. It's more like a web with a bunch of experience clustered maybe in one or two places, but that whole web full of things that might be real to someone who's that spot on the web. I believe we seek full inclusion because life is complicated. Being human is complex. Human sexuality and gender and sexual orientation and desire and all the things associated with all of them are complex. I can sympathize with someone who doesn't understand transgenderness or being non-binary. I really can. I understand not understanding things. But I cannot morally accept treating anyone of any gender expression or any orientation or any sex with anything other than full and complete human rights and human dignity and human acceptance and human love. That's the difference between having an opinion about this stuff and having ethics around it. We can't walk away from our ethics and our commitments to justice and our values Whenever we don't understand something, our job is to learn about it so we understand more and have more just, more compassionate, more inclusive, more loving responses to things. That can be a lot of hard work. And it's always worth it. Because one of the things of which I am completely certain in all of this is that there are never just two sides to a story. I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join in singing "We Are a Gentle, Angry People." The verses 1 through 4 are in your hymnal, but once we get to the end verses, we're using the new composed verses from the composer, and I think those are the ones that are in your order of service and on the new slides.
Ready and sing. We are and we are singing, singing for our Lord. We are gentle and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are justice and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are the many daughters, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many daughters, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are near and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are near and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. Trans and cis. We are trans and cis together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are trans and cis together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. All in this together. We are all in this together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are all in this together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. Gentle, loving. We are gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our
Please join me in our words for extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish
this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, These we carry into our hearts and out into the world until we are together again.
If you're new to us this morning, I'll be up here after the service. I would love to meet you. When you end up leaving this place this morning, whenever that is, do so with peace in your heart.